Hello, good morning everyone.
Good morning, ma'am.
Whether the screen is visible?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so let's continue with today's session. In the last session, we have gone through types of learning algorithms under which we have studied, in fact, two kinds of algorithms. First was the supervised learning and the second was the unsupervised learning. Right? So what is supervised learning? Supervised learning is a kind of algorithm. In simple words, supervised learning is a learning with supervision of a teacher. Right? Say for example, we are learning and the teacher is explaining us the concepts and we are learning. So that kind of a thing is a supervised learning. Whereas in unsupervised learning, we may say that the student on his or her own needs to figure out the concepts, right? So there is no supervision as such from the teacher. If this is the case, then we say that it is unsupervised learning. So in supervised learning, in terms of machine learning, in supervised learning, what we have is, as an input, we are providing some labeled data set. And based on that labeled data set, my system learns. And whenever something unknown is being presented, then the class of that unknown sample will be predicted. Right? So this is supervised learning. In unsupervised learning, what happens is we are presenting the data which is unlabeled as input. So the data in unsupervised learning is not labeled. We do not know anything about the prediction for that data, right? So my algorithm will do it on its own. So what algorithm is trying to do? The algorithm is trying to group that data based on some criteria, some similarity, some criteria. So if I'm having, say for example, 100 samples which are unlabeled, 100 examples which are unlabeled, I'm going to provide that data to my algorithm and my algorithm will group that data based on certain criteria, and these groups are known as the clusters, right? So this is how unsupervised learning algorithm works. So we have gone through, in fact, these kinds of algorithms in the last session. So today we are going to focus upon semi-supervised learning. So what we mean by semi-supervised learning? As the name suggests, it is actually a combination of supervised learning and unsupervised learning. So what we mean by that? Combination of supervised learning and unsupervised learning. Meaning we are providing the data or some data which is labeled and some data that is unlabeled. So we are providing mix of data to the semi-supervised learning methods. So this data comprises of some part of data that is labeled and some part of a data that is unlabeled. Okay, so let's see one example. See here in this figure A, what we have is we are having labeled data. Okay, so meaning we are having the data that belongs to two classes. We are having the data of circle class and we are having the data for triangle class. Right? So this is the labeled data that is available. what supervised learning algorithms will do, supervised learning algorithms will try to find out a discriminating function. We have seen that concept in the last session. So, my supervised learning algorithm will try to find out such kind of a plane, such kind of a function that actually separates the data from one class to the, so it will try to find out a function or a line in this case that will distinguish the data from two classes, circle class and triangle class. Okay, so this is the supervised learning. But in semi-supervised learning, as I stated, what we are having the data that is partially labeled and partially unlabeled. So in case of semi-supervised learning, we are having the data in this fashion. So we are having the labeled data. So we are having some circle data and some data that belongs to the triangle class. So these samples are labeled. But also, if you look at this figure, figure B here, we are having some small circles also. And this data is in fact unlabeled data. Right? So in semi-supervised learning, we are having some data that is labeled and also some data which is unlabeled. And this entire mix of data is being provided to my system or my algorithm. Now, why actually we are having such kind of a learning algorithm, semi-supervised? There are some disadvantages of both supervised learning algorithms and unsupervised learning algorithms. And to have a trade-off, right, the semi-supervised kind of learning algorithms were proposed. So the disadvantage, one of the disadvantages of supervised learning is that if we want to go with supervised learning, we must have our data set that is labeled. I'll repeat. If I want to go with supervised learning, I must have the data set that is labeled so that I can use that data set for training my system. But in real world scenarios, many times what happens is we are having huge amount of data as training data, and it may not be possible to have pre-labeled data set. And if I want to label that data, sometimes it is, or sometimes we need to hand label that data by machine learning engineers or data scientists. So if I am having in my training data set, suppose if I am having say million entries, let us assume, then all those records need to be labeled. But in real world scenario, many times it happens that we are not having such amount of data which is labeled, and that is why some people or some machine learning engineers or data scientists need to hand label that data. They need to manually label that data, and this process actually is very costly, right? Especially when we are dealing with large volumes of data. So that can be one of the biggest disadvantages of supervised learning, right? So unavailability of the labeled data, and even though we decide to label that data, we need to manually label that data, and it is a costly process if we are having some large volumes of data to be labeled. And if we look at unsupervised learning algorithms, the disadvantage of unsupervised learning algorithms is the application spectrum of unsupervised learning algorithms is somewhat limited, right? So if we would like to have a combination, or if we would like to pick the advantages from both kinds of learning, we may come up with a third category, and that is semi-supervised learning, wherein we are having the characteristics of supervised learning also and the characteristics of unsupervised learning also, and by having a mix of data which is labeled and unlabeled, it is possible to build the algorithm. Right? So this is what actually the theme of this semi-supervised learning algorithms. If you have any doubts, please let me know. May I proceed?
Yes.
Okay, so if now I am having such kind of mixed data, how actually my semi-supervised algorithms work, right? I am having some data that is labeled, some data that is unlabeled. And let me tell you, in this scenario, the labeled data is small in number, whereas the unlabeled data is huge. Right? So typically, how the semi-supervised learning algorithms work. The basic procedure involves that the programmer will cluster first the similar data using some unsupervised learning algorithm. So we know unsupervised learning algorithm is meant for grouping the data. So similar data can be grouped together. So in semi-supervised learning, the first step is to group the similar data, right, using unsupervised learning mechanism, right? Once the similar data is being clustered or it is being grouped, then what we can do is we can use the existing labeled data that is available with us to label this unlabeled data. I'll repeat. What we are going to do? We are having some data that is labeled and we are having some data that is unlabeled. And if we look at the numbers, then labeled data is really very small and unlabeled data is very huge. So in semi-supervised learning, typically the procedure goes like this. Initially, all the unlabeled data samples, right, those are being clustered. So all the samples are being clustered in different groups. Once we are having those groups, then we are making use of the labeled data to label the unlabeled data. So here we are having some assumptions while implementing semi-supervised algorithms. We are having continuity assumption. So what this assumption is, we say that the algorithm assumes that the points which are closer to each other are more likely to have the same output label. So if I am having these points which are close to one another, then there is a possibility that they belong to same class. We'll repeat. This is called as continuity assumption. The algorithm assumes that the points which are closer to one another are more likely to have the same output label. So if my data points are very close to one another, if I plot those points, then there is a possibility that they are having the same label. Okay, and we are having one more assumption that is called as cluster assumption. So we may say that the data can be divided into discrete clusters and points in the same cluster are more likely to have the same output label. So if, say for example, if this is my data spread out in this space, then if I try to cluster that data, then I may find that all those points are grouped together, right? And there is some other group of points. So if I'm having such kinds of discrete clusters, then the points belonging to the same cluster are having the same output label. So once again, I'll repeat two assumptions: continuity assumption and the cluster assumption. In continuity assumption, what we may say? We may say that the points those are very close to one another can have the same output label. Okay? And the second assumption says that whenever we are clustering the data, if the data forms two clusters, right, then the data points in one cluster are having or are more likely to have the same label. So I may say that this is one cluster and this is another cluster. So all the points belonging to this cluster and all the points belonging to this cluster are same, having the same output label. Okay, so by making use of such semi-supervised learning algorithms also, it is possible for us to define one discrimination function, and that segregates now the data in two classes. So whatever is the data towards this side of the line is, say, class circle, and the data that is towards right of this function is, say, class triangle. So this is how actually we are using semi-supervised learning algorithms. I hope the idea is clear. If you have any doubts, please let me know. Yes. Any doubts? Jaideep, roll number 109, Jaideep Ingre, are you there?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Have you understood the concept of semi-supervised learning?
Yes, ma'am.
So will you please explain whatever you have understood? What we have in semi-supervised learning? Yes. Please unmute yourself and try to answer the question. Jaideep, are you there? Anybody else who can answer this question? May I ask Anuja Patil, 63, roll number 63, Anuja.
Yes, ma'am.
Have you understood the concept?
In semi-supervised learning, data is in the form of labeled data and unlabeled data. By using labeled data, we are going to give the label to the unlabeled data. In that, first we form group that is called as a clustering.
Yes. What next? You are right, go ahead. So what after clustering? In one cluster, what we have? In one cluster, we are having the data which is similar. Correct, na? So we are having the group of similar data, right? And then we may use the supervised learning. We may use the labeled data, right? To label, actually to provide the labels to that unknown samples or unlabeled samples. Is that correct? So this is how we get the entire data which is labeled. Okay? So this is how actually our semi-supervised learning algorithms work. Let me tell you a few practical applications of semi-supervised learning algorithms. So we may refer to as speech analysis application, speech analysis. See, if we are having lots of audio clips, if we are having lots of audio files, okay, and if we want to classify those audio clips based on certain criteria, maybe based on the person, okay. So suppose I am having, say for example, 10 people and I am having the audio speech recorded of these 10 people, right? A huge database I am having, thousands of audio clips I am having, okay. So it is not possible for me to manually annotate every clip by listening to that clip and by annotating that clip with the name of the person or the speaker, right? So in this scenario, what we can do is we can use the semi-supervised learning algorithm. Few of the clips are labeled, so few of the audio clips are having associated the name of the speaker, but few of the audio clips are not having the name of the speaker. So what we can do is we can make use of semi-supervised learning algorithm. So initially what happens is all those audio clips, right, will be presented to the unsupervised learning algorithm, and my unsupervised learning algorithm will group or cluster that data based on the similarity of the audio properties. We are not going to focus upon what kind of properties we may have, but there are certain properties of those audio clips. So based on that, my unsupervised learning algorithm will try to cluster those audio clips in several clusters. So according to our assumption, what we said, in one cluster we are having or we are expecting the audio clips of one speaker because they are having similar properties, right? So this is how we may find out the clusters. Now, as we are having few of the clips, those are annotated with the name of the speaker, we may make use of now those audio clips to label the nearby audio clips in that cluster. Is that correct? So in one cluster, I am having now some data points, and for few of the data points or for few of the audio clips, I know the speaker name. Correct? And as I mentioned, there is a possibility that the audio clips in one group, in one cluster are similar. Those belong to the same speaker. So after clustering, as I am having some data which is annotated or labeled, what I can do is rest of the data and in that cluster, I may assign the same label to that data. And this is how I may get all the data that is annotated. Is that correct? So this is how my semi-supervised learning algorithm works for analyzing the speech data. Similarly, one more application I may quote here for semi-supervised learning, internet content classification. Internet content classification. So what we mean by that? See, we are making use of internet, and every day we come across millions of web pages, right? And while searching the web pages, we need to have some category assigned to those pages. So if I'm searching something, then what I'll do, I'll open one search engine like Google. I put whatever I would like to search for in a query form, in a text form, right? And I'm getting some web pages in front of my screen. Right? So to carry out this process, actually, the algorithms, machine learning algorithms are working behind the scene. So what they do, they pick or they find out the pages, web pages belonging to or satisfying the criteria that we have provided as our search text. Okay, and wherever there is a match, I'll be getting those pages. To carry out this process, initially, what is important? It is important to annotate all the web pages with the categories. Correct? But as we are having millions of web pages, it is really very difficult to manually annotate each web page in which category that web page belongs. And here also there is a role of semi-supervised learning algorithm. So what semi-supervised learning algorithm will do? Once again, the semi-supervised algorithm will group the similar kinds of web pages in one cluster, and then it will try to annotate those web pages. So even Google search algorithm is actually making use of the variant of semi-supervised learning algorithm to rank the relevance of web pages for a given query. Right? So search engines are actually making use of such kinds of semi-supervised learning algorithms. So this was the application wherein we are trying to classify the internet. We are trying to classify the web pages. Okay, so I hope you must have understood what is semi-supervised learning and what kinds of applications we may have. So typically the applications include the data, applications include the classification tasks, typically wherein we are having few examples, those are labeled, and we are having many number of examples, those are unlabeled. And practically it is not feasible to label that data so as to go with supervised learning. And that is why instead of making use of only supervised learning mechanism, we are making use of semi-supervised learning, wherein to label that data, we are making use of unsupervised learning by grouping the data together. Right? I hope you must have understood the concept. If no, please let me know. Otherwise, we'll proceed with the next category of algorithms. Any doubts so far? Please speak
Hello.
up. Yes.
Ma'am, can you tell me the basic difference between supervised and unsupervised? What is the basic difference?
Whether you were there in the last session?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So see here, let's go back now. The supervised learning and unsupervised learning. So this is how we depicted the supervised learning mechanism. Right? So in supervised learning, we are having some data. Yes.
Actually, I have understood the supervised, but in semi-supervised, I'm a little bit confused.
So see, the basic difference in supervised learning and unsupervised learning is, in supervised learning, we need all the data that is labeled for training.
Ma'am, semi-supervised, I'm talking.
So it is based on both the concepts, supervised as well as semi-supervised. Right? What is the difficulty? Many times, see, supervised algorithms are really performing well because we are training our systems with labeled data. But in real world scenarios, it is not possible actually to have all the training data with labels. So usually we are having the mix of data. Some data is labeled and some data is unlabeled. And we would like to make use of that data, correct, to classify the unknown samples. So what we are trying to do is, whatever are the properties of supervised learning and whatever are the properties of unsupervised learning, we are mixing, we are combining the concepts together. So what we are going to do first is, see, as I mentioned, we are having some data that is labeled. So this entire data is a mix of data. So some data, these circles and triangles, those belong to two different classes. So some data is labeled and the small circles, this data is unlabeled. I do not know in advance the label of that data. Okay, now what I'll do is, I'll first use unsupervised learning with this data. So what my unsupervised learning will do, my unsupervised learning will try to cluster the data. Clustering means what? If I am having say 100 samples, based on the similarity among the data points, what my unsupervised learning algorithm will do, it will collect the data points, those are similar in one group, right? So I'll be having, say for example, here I have formed two clusters of data. So all those data points will go in one cluster and all remaining data points or these data points will go in other cluster. So it is possible for me now, as we are having here a visual, it is possible for me to understand that we are having two separate groups of data, two separate clusters of data, right? Now in this cluster, we are having some data points, those are labeled. In this cluster also, we are having some points, those are labeled. So what is the next step? As per our assumption, we say that the data points, those are grouped in one cluster, are more likely to have the same label. So if I am having these many points, those are in one cluster and few of the points are annotated or having the labels, what I may say, if all those are being decided in one group, then they are having the same label. So how to provide the label to this unknown data? I am having in this group few of the data points with known class. So the same class I will assign to all those points which were not labeled earlier. Getting me? Similarly, I am having here few of the points, those are labeled in this cluster. So according to my assumption, I may say that whichever are the points, those are unlabeled in this cluster, those will have the label that is triangle. So all these small circles will be annotated as they belong to the triangle class in this cluster. Am I clear? So now I am having all the data that is annotated. Earlier I was not having that data which was annotated. Na? So once I am having now this data annotated, what I can do is, I can make use of this entire data set now, which is labeled, right, after this first step. And then I may go with some supervised learning algorithm, right, to come up with this kind of discriminant function that will classify my data points.
Means we are doing unsupervised learning here.
Both we are doing, supervised as well as unsupervised.
Means we are
Unsupervised, the first step is unsupervised.
Okay, means we are labeling the data and then we are using unsupervised learning algorithm.
No. To label the data, we are making use of unsupervised.
Okay.
And then we may proceed with supervised because now our data is labeled. And that is why we may apply supervised learning with the labeled data, whichever algorithm we would like to have. And based on that, we may come up with some beta discriminant function that actually classifies my data points.
Okay, ma'am.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay. May I proceed?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, fine. So, the next algorithm that we are going to discuss is reinforcement learning, as I stated earlier. Right? We are not going to cover these kinds of algorithms in our curriculum. But this is a brief introduction to reinforcement learning. Okay? So, what is reinforcement learning actually? In reinforcement learning, we are having some environment, right? And we are having an agent. And the agent is performing some actions. And these actions are actually impacting my environment. I'll repeat. I'm having some environment. I'm having some agent. My agent is acting in that environment. Okay? And due to that act of my agent, the environment is being impacted. Okay? So whenever my agent takes an action, the environment goes into some new state. Okay? And depending on what action is being taken, right? Depending on the action that is being taken, my agent will either get a reward or my agent will get a penalty. So either my agent will get positive reward or my agent will get the penalty or a punishment. And depending on that, whether the agent has got the reward or whether the agent has got the negative reward or penalty, depending on that, the score is being computed. Right? And the agent is continuously working in the environment and collecting that score. So whenever the agent reaches to the destination, whatever may be the task, whenever the agent completes the task, right? Whatever is the score, that score has been assessed. So whichever are the actions, those are taken. So we may have many number of solutions in this scenario depending on the actions taken by the agent. So whichever is the set of actions that has given me the maximum reward, that is taken as the final solution. So by having various kinds of actions, my agent actually is gaining the experience, right? And whichever set of actions is giving me the maximum reward or the score, then that set of action would determine the solution for the problem. So let us see this small example. You might be seeing here one example. So what this example is, we are having an agent. So this is my agent and this entire thing is my environment. Okay, and this agent needs to reach to this reward, or this is the goal. So my agent needs to follow some path to reach to this goal. Okay, and we are having many hurdles in between. So these are the hurdles. So this is a kind of a game. Okay, so we are having various hurdles and this agent needs to reach to the goal. Okay, with the best possible path. And that would be the optimum solution for the problem. So what will happen? My agent will take a step. My agent will have the action. Say for example, my agent will go from this position to this position. Okay, my agent will after take the action from this position to this position or from this position to this position. If the agent goes this way at this position, then this is a dead end. So because there is a hurdle, so from this position my agent may not go to this place because there is a hurdle, right? So my agent needs to come back. So whatever path taken by my agent in this direction, that was not suitable, and that is why my agent may be punished. Okay, so the score gets reduced. But if my agent after this position, if my agent moves in this direction, then the agent will go to this position, then it will go to this position, and as this is the correct path, right, there is a gain in the score, right? So this is how multiple paths are being traversed by this agent, and accordingly for all those paths, whatever are the rewards, those are being collected, correct? And after, so ultimately the agent is going to reach to this destination. So whichever path has provided the maximum reward, that path is the best suitable path to reach to this particular goal. Is that correct? So this is how actually the reinforcement learning algorithm works. So this is a brief introduction just to let you know how actually such kinds of algorithms work. We are not going into the details of these algorithms, but the most popular applications of reinforcement learning are in the robot navigation or in building the games, right? Games is one of the most popular application. Building the games is the most popular application under reinforcement learning, right? So understanding the moves of the player, correct? Or in robot navigation to find out the appropriate path if we are having some hurdles in between. Okay, so such kinds of algorithms are being used in these kinds of applications, right? So this was the third important category, reinforcement learning. So let me summarize. We have seen three major types of algorithms: supervised algorithm, unsupervised algorithms, and reinforcement learning. And semi-supervised algorithms is the subcategory that combines actually the supervised learning mechanism and unsupervised learning mechanism to have some different kinds of properties with the algorithm, and that will be helpful to solve some problems. Like just I mentioned, internet content classification or the speech analysis kind of task will be performed with the help of such kinds of semi-supervised algorithms. So shall I proceed? Or any doubts? Yes? May I proceed to the next?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. So we are going to look at now some important terms in machine learning, right? So what are those terms? We are just going to focus upon few of the terms today. So the very first term is the inductive learning or prediction. Inductive learning or prediction. So we have seen that in our training data set, we are having, so if we consider the supervised learning, then we are having the data set of the form x comma y. Okay, so we are having this x, that is a data that is provided. So this data is described like the properties of that particular object or that particular example. And what is y? As I stated earlier, y is the associated label or class or the prediction. Okay, and also we have seen that while describing the supervised learning, we are having this y that is actually a function of my input x given some parameters theta. Okay, so this y is actually a function. So by making use of learning algorithm, I am trying to derive this function h, right, that maps input and output x and y. So y is described as a function h, right? So this function is of input x. So we may look at this pair xy as x comma h of x. So this y is nothing but the function of my input x. So we may say that we have been provided with the examples of the form x comma h of x. And what we need to do is we need to come up with this function h of x for new examples. We need to come up with this function h of x, right? So that if my system is being presented with new unknown examples, then my system will be able to predict the class. Am I right? So once again, I am going to clarify this point. So what is inductive learning? Inductive learning is also known as the prediction. And why we are calling this as inductive learning? We are given some data and we are trying to do induction to come up with a function, and that function will actually helps us to classify the data. That function will help us to actually explain the data, right? So this is a kind of induction that we are performing to come up with some function in general, and that function will explain the data. So what is this y? Y is actually a function that is based on my input x. So whenever I have been presented with the data of the form x comma y, I may say that I have been provided with the data or the examples like x comma some function of x, right? And what we are doing in inductive learning or in the algorithms that we have studied, we come up with this function h of x, and how we are actually trying to perform the induction of the it is a regression problem. And sometimes what we may have is this h of x is giving us some kind of a probability. Then we say that it is a probability estimation problem. So let me tell you what I mean by probability and what this function actually is providing me. So some of the algorithms are providing me the probability. For example, if I am having the data that belongs to class 0 and class 1, and say suppose I am using one learning algorithm, so that learning algorithm will provide me ultimately, I am having this function h of x, so whatever may be the values of the input I am providing to this function h, this will give me the result based on this input x. Okay, so whatever may be this x, this h of x will give me something like that. Say for example, say 0.71. Suppose this h of x is giving me the value like 0.71 after using some algorithm. Say for example, I am using logistic regression. Okay, so this logistic regression algorithm is actually giving me some kind of output like this, 0.71. So how I am going to interpret this? I'll be interpreting this like 0.71 is the probability that I am having the class 1. Right? So obviously 0.29 is the probability that the sample belongs to, say, class 0. I'll repeat. If I'm using the algorithm that is giving me some probability, some number, then how I'm going to interpret this probability? I'll be interpreting this like the sample that I want to find out the class for. So X is the data sample that for which I would like to identify the class. And if my algorithm is giving me this probability 0.71, so I'm going to interpret this like the probability that this unknown sample X belongs to class 1 is 71%. Right? And obviously the probability that this unknown data sample X belongs to class 0 is 29% or 0.29. Right? So this is what we mean by probability estimation. So by making use of inductive learning or prediction, we are having the examples of the form x, comma h of x, and we are predicting the function h of x. So if h of x is giving me discrete value, it is classification problem. If it is giving me continuous value, it is regression problem. And sometimes my algorithms are actually giving me some probability. And if the algorithm is providing the probability, we say that it is a probability estimation. And based on that probability estimation, we may have some threshold and we may categorize our samples. We may come up with a classification. We are going to focus upon this probability estimation later. But I hope you must have understood the concepts. If you have any doubts, please let me know. Otherwise, we are going to conclude the session. Yes, any doubts? Any doubts? Okay, if you are not having any doubts, I'm going to conclude the session and I'll be posting a link for the quiz. Okay.